Welcome to the Golf Report podcast. Today I'm joined by Kennedy Swann. Kennedy is currently the head golf professional at Tokatee Golf Club in Oregon. Kennedy is a 2022 graduate from Ole Miss, where she won the 2021 Team National Championship with the Ole Miss Lady Rebels. Kennedy spent her first 2 years of college golf at Clemson. Kennedy is from Austin, Texas, and played for the esteemed Westlake High School in Austin, Texas. So Kennedy, thank you very much for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of yours, and I'm honored, that you would even consider doing an interview with me, someone who's just, starting up a YouTube channel.
Well, of
So,
course. Yeah, this is
yeah,
awesome. I think we've got a good thing going.
yeah. So tell me, so you're in Oregon right now. Just tell me, about your current position. We'll get into it as head golf professional at Tokatee Golf Club, and tell me, how's the weather in Oregon, and the courses stay open during the winter, or do they close for a few months in Oregon?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting being in a seasonal position here. So we open typically end of February, and are open through mid-November. So closed for about 3 months out of the year. But it really just kind of depends on year to year. So like last year, we actually were closed kind of through mid-April. We'd open up for a little bit and then we'd get a big push of snow. And obviously you can't play golf in the snow. So we'd close down for another couple weeks and then reopen again when the snow would melt off and then get hit with more snow. But yeah, this is my second season as the head professional at Tokatee and my fifth season working at Tokatee. Um, but yeah, it's kind of crazy being seasonal because you'll find yourself working like 16, 18-hour days in the summer. There was a couple events that I worked, like got up at 4 a.m. and went to sleep at 2 a.m. Just running those. But then it's also really nice because during the winter when we're closed, we have an online store and we're doing some remodeling. We did some last year, doing some more this year. And my friends and I actually just bought the restaurant up here as well. So we'll be running that this year. So we've been doing a bunch of stuff with that. But you definitely get more downtime. Your schedule's more flexible. It's nice to have that time to recharge before you get back into the busy season.
Nice. So you're born in Lubbock, Texas. You grew up in Austin, Texas. So tell me, what was it like growing up in Austin, Texas? And did you grow up in Austin, Texas, your whole life until you went to college, or not your whole time?
Yeah, I so was born in Lubbock and I moved to Austin at a really early age. So I
Okay.
was 8 months old when I moved to Austin. So I don't remember Lubbock too much. But yeah, my parents moved down there with me and I was there until I moved out for college. Um, yeah, I mean I loved Austin. I think it's a great city. I don't know if I would ever move back to it now just because the population's gotten so high. I mean, there's upwards of 2.3 million people in Austin now,
Hmm.
which is a little ridiculous. I mean, it's again, great city and I love my parents are still in the area, so I go back to visit them a lot. Um, but I mean, there's great food, great music. And obviously Westlake was great for my golf career. I really enjoyed it and it kind of got me to where I am today.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Oregon and Texas, but my stepsister lived in both. She lived in Dallas for a few years, and then I forget how long, but she lived in Portland for a time. I don't know if it was just a year or so, but yeah, that's the only connection I have to Dallas and Oregon. But anyway, so tell me, how did you get started playing golf, and what age did you begin playing golf?
Yeah, so it's funny, my grandfather actually kind of got me into it first. They lived in Amarillo, Texas. And so I think I was 4 or 5 years old and he bought me like a plastic set of clubs just to mess around with in the backyard. And like I do with a lot of things, I got way too competitive about it. Um, and then I kind of took not even really a break, but just didn't really get back into it for a little while. And I played softball growing up. And then when I was about 10 years old, I quit softball. And my dad was like, well, you need a sport. So he took me to the golf course and gave me a club, and I instantly fell in love with it.
So what early memories do you have from, growing up playing golf?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think one that my parents and I actually talk about a lot. So I grew up playing TJGTs, which is Texas Junior Golf Tour, along with AJGAs. And so there's a TJGT event that I was playing in, and it's always over Thanksgiving, and it's in at TPC San Antonio.
Okay.
Um, and so I was probably 13 or 14 years old, and it was like 38 degrees, pouring rain, and 20-mile-an-hour winds. And I just remember like hiding in the back of the golf cart, like where you put your clubs. I was hiding it, like my mom and I were hiding like in the little divot of the golf cart, wrapped in a blanket. And my dad had to like grab me and drag me to go hit my shot because it was so cold and nasty outside.
Tell me about your junior golf career and what it was like to play in, AJGA tournaments and, other tournaments that you played as a junior.
Yeah, so I started with US Kids Golf, which I think is where a lot of other kids get their start. And then I advanced to TJGTs and played in a lot of those, played in all the majors. And the nice part was is the TJGTs would give you AJGA stars. And so then that would kind of further your progress into like getting into AJGAs. I kind of got my start late with AJGAs, so I didn't really start playing in a lot of like the smaller ones until I was probably 15 or 16. And then by the time I was going off to college was when I kind of started getting into all the invitationals and stuff.
Nice. Any friends who you played with growing up in junior golf or any friends that you made, playing junior golf?
Yeah, a lot of friends through junior golf, which I think was awesome. So like Caitlin Papp, she played for Texas. She's on the LPGA tour now. We've played together since we were 10 years old. Like I've got pictures of us playing US kids events together. At Kristen Gilman's another one we played together in high school, and she was my one rival that I could not seem to beat. She beat me at state, she beat me at district, she beat me at regionals, beat me in pretty much every AJGA event we played in. So yeah, but you make lifelong friends through junior golf.
Nice. So then after junior golf, you played at Westlake High School in Austin, Texas. Westlake, has a, esteemed history of, high school golf. It's produced players like, Sean Carl Dobson. He plays for Stanford men's golf. He went to Westlake. Sadie Engelman. She plays for Stanford women's golf. She went to Westlake. Bentley Cotton. She's on, Texas Longhorns women's golf. She went there. Reed Davenport, Vanderbilt. He went to Westlake. And then three players on SMU men's golf went to Westlake. So maybe I forgot someone, but it's produced a lot of, high level Division I players, Westlake. So, what was it like to attend and play high school golf at, Westlake High School, which has produced so many incredible players and, had so much success in its history.
Yeah, it is like is a ton of success that's come out of Westlake. If you look at it, so I won the Eastlake Cup as an individual, and Sadie Engelman won the Eastlake Cup as an individual.
Yeah.
So I don't know the odds, but I guarantee you we're the only two from the same high school to ever do it, which is pretty cool. So I think, at the time I was really frustrated with how good the competition was because not only was Westlake that talented, but Lake Travis was that talented. Kristen Gilman, Caitlin Papp, that's where they played. And so I was constantly between my team and between rival high schools, having to fight to really get in the hunt. And again, I think at the time it was a little discouraging, but looking back on it, I'm glad that the competition was that good because that's put me where I am today.
Nice. How was your time at Westlake, and what was it like to be the number one player at Westlake for all 4 years? I'm sure the competition was very high, at, a very competitive school like Westlake, and you remained the number one player at Westlake for all 4 years. So yeah, just how was your time at Westlake, for high school?
Yeah, it was great. I'm not necessarily the most I don't fit in socially as much as some other people. So I had, 4 or 5 really good friends that I spent time with, and then that was about it. I really enjoyed my golf team. My coach was awesome. He's a big old goofball. Um, and I mean, honestly, being the number one ranked player was great, but it also comes with drawbacks just because, if you're the number one ranked player as a freshman, you're probably going to piss off some people who have been in that position before you got there. So I think that was a little bit difficult with like the team dynamic of things. But all in all, I really liked my team, and it was really fun to be able to compete for a state championship every year. Um, But yeah, the experience at Westlake was great. I mean, the school itself was great. I got to get a lot of college credits before I graduated and get that stuff out of the way. And I've got, lifelong friends from there that I'll hopefully stay in touch with for the rest of my life.
So after your high school career at Westlake, then for your first 2 years of college, you went to Clemson. So what initially drew you to Clemson, and were there any other schools you were looking at during recruiting, or were you, pretty set on from the get-go, pretty set on, attending Clemson?
Yeah, so I started the recruiting process when I was a freshman. And I knew I wanted to commit early just to kind of get the stress of where I was going to go off my shoulders. I knew I didn't want to stay in Texas. I wanted to get out. And so I was looking really anywhere in the Southeast. That was kind of my second home growing up. I grew up going to US Kids Worlds in Pinehurst, and playing AJGA events and other like US Kids events all throughout the Southeast. And so I was already familiar with it, so wanted to go somewhere in that region. And so I picked Clemson, Auburn, and Vanderbilt to look at. Those were kind of my main three schools. And we went to Clemson last, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the campus. The coach that recruited me at the time, JT Horton, was incredible. The girls on the team were great. And it really lined up with what I enjoyed doing outside of golf, which is, being outside, being in the woods, and there's some of that in Texas, but not nearly as much.
So tell me about joining Clemson in January 2017, when, normally you should have been a second semester high school senior, but instead, you chose to join Clemson in 2017. So just tell me about that.
Yeah, I think I've always been a little mature for my age. But even with that being said, I think I was still a little too immature to go to college a semester early. It can't really prepare you for being completely free and released on your own to make your own decisions, having just turned 18 years old. But I really enjoyed it, and I actually had a great first semester there. In hindsight, I don't know if I would have stayed at Westlake another year, but I had all my credits already and I felt like I had kind of moved on. And so I was able to get to Clemson a semester early. And I think that definitely pushed me to be more mature than I was at the time.
Nice. So just reflecting, how were your 2 years at Clemson, and, are there any memorable moments that you have from your, 2 years at Clemson?
Yeah, well, I met my now husband. So
Okay.
we met that spring of 2017 in a statistics class. And it was just completely random. I had no clue who this guy was, and he just came up and introduced himself to me and started talking to me. And here we are 8 years later, married. So that was great. I remember the first time that Clemson had ever made it to the national championship because the women's program was fairly new when I had gotten there. I think it was 5 or 6 years old at the time. And so that first spring, we were the first women's program at like women's golf program at Clemson to make it to the national championship. So that was pretty incredible. We got to play some really cool courses in Georgia because Kelly Hester used to be a coach at Georgia. So we got to play Atlanta Athletic Club, which was a really cool experience. And we
Nice.
also got to play Augusta National
Oh, wow. Nice.
my freshman year, which was an incredible experience.
Nice. Yeah, that is incredible. So then after your 2 years at Clemson, you transferred to Ole Miss, where you're probably most known for, being part of the Lady Rebels women's golf. So, what ultimately led you to transfer from Clemson to Ole Miss, and what drew you to Ole Miss?
Yeah, so I decided, actually Kelly Hester and I both kind of mutually decided that it wasn't necessarily working out. So like I was talking about the recruiting process, I committed to a different coach than the one I ended up playing for, which
Okay.
I think is a really hard situation to be in as a college golfer, especially when those two coaches are pretty different in their coaching styles. Not that there's one thing that's better than the other for the general population, but for me, there definitely was. And so that fall, we just kind of decided that it wasn't the best thing for my game. And honestly, I was better coming out of high school than I was when I transferred. And so when my name went in the portal, it's actually a fun fact about me, my kind of party trick. I was the first athlete ever in the transfer portal out of
Okay.
any sport, because we had decided that I was going to transfer. Kelly had told me there's this new thing called the NCAA transfer portal that you can just put your name in and college coaches can reach out to you. And so when the portal opened at 9 a.m. exactly, I went in the portal. And so I was reached out to reached out by University of Arizona
Okay.
and Ole Miss. So those were kind of my two schools. And then the coaches at Ole Miss really just kind of convinced me. And honestly, they took a little bit of a chance on me because my game wasn't great at the time. You know, I didn't have a great spring of sophomore year or fall of junior year. But I think they saw someone who was driven and wanted to be developed as a player.
Nice. So yeah, it ended up working, ultimately, I'm from Arizona. I would have liked you to go to Arizona, but ultimately, it did end up working very well for you at Ole Miss. So yeah, you had success initially at Ole Miss. You got the individual victory at Illinois' tournament at Medina. So what did it mean to you to get your first individual collegiate victory at Illinois' tournament at Medina?
Yeah, I think when I was at Clemson, I never saw that as a possibility for myself. You know, our
Mhm.
number one player, Alice Houston, who's now on the Ladies European Tour and plays on the LPGA Tour as well.
Okay.
Um, she would win, tournaments as an individual, and I'd look at her and be like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like, good for her. I'll never be that good." That's never something that I thought was in the cards for me. And it's actually really cool. The week before Medina's tournament, I can't remember where we had just played, but our coaches kept very detailed stats about just different aspects of our game in qualifying and tournaments, and even just kind of when we were out playing. And so my assistant coach, Zach Bird, and I sat down and I told him, I was like, I feel like it's really close. It's right there. I just can't figure out like what's missing. So he pulled up my stats from the last tournament and he's like, well, from 110 to 140 yards, your proximity to the hole is 25 feet. And he's like, you're hitting it closer outside of 140 yards, like from 140 to 180 yards, your proximity to the hole is 15 feet. So he's like, we got to figure out how to get that number closer. So he spent that whole week working on 110 to 140 yard iron shots. And
Mhm.
then I went out that week, one as an individual, and we sat down to look at my stats. And he's like, your proximity to the hole was 11 feet. So it's a lot easier to make an 11 footer than a 25 footer.
Yeah. So, what was it like for your team to get four team victories in the 2019-2020 season? Obviously, we know that, 2020 season got, cut short, but your team had a lot of success before the season got cut short. So, what was it like to get those four team victories in the 2019 and 2020 season?
Yeah, it was incredible to be a part of a team that was like that as well. You know, at Clemson, I think we had maybe had one or two individual or like team wins. But at Ole Miss, being able to win 4 out of our 5 in our fall season, and the one we didn't win, we came in second, was extremely encouraging. And I think we knew we were going to be doing big things. And especially since it was my senior year, I was there were 2 other seniors on the team at that time. Um, and just really kind of motivating our team of like, hey, this is our last year. If we're going to do something, like we need to do it.
So tell me about tying for first individually at the 2020 East Lake Cup with your teammate Ellen Hume, and also tell me about, winning the 2020 East Lake Cup as a team.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite collegiate memories. Especially Ellen Hume. She's one of my best friends, and she was a bridesmaid in my wedding. And so it was so special to be able to share that with her, and that's something that we will forever share as teammates. But I remember being on hole 17, and I knew I was going to be close, but I didn't know exactly where because they didn't have like a live leaderboard or anything. And so I asked my coach walking up to 17 green, like, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? And he'd normally like not tell me. And he's like, I'm not going to tell you, just like, you need to get up and down here, and then we'll get to 18 and we'll make a birdie. So that kind of told me like, okay, I'm one back. I need to get something going. And so on 18, I had like maybe a 15, 16 footer for birdie to share the win with my teammate. And I
Mhm.
was able to make it. And it was awesome. She rushed me and was really excited about it, which sometimes that is not the most genuine thing from teammates. So it was really special. And winning it as a team was just equally as special, especially beating South Carolina. We had a long time rival with them because we beat them at SECs in 2019 when we won as a team. Um, and then we beat them at the Natty too. So that was pretty special.
So did winning the Eastlake Cup, in 2020 give your team the confidence that something special was brewing, for your team at Ole Miss, and that your team, was capable of not only competing, with, the top teams in the country, but also, winning the Eastlake Cup? Did it give your team the confidence that, you're not only here to compete, but you're here to, win a national championship, and that, your team is able to do so?
Yeah, I think my teammate Julia Johnson has said it really well, kind of over and over. In 2019 when we won SECs, like a lot of the Golf Channel reporters didn't even have us making the cut to match play.
Hmm.
And then we ended up winning. At East Lake Cup, same thing. Like a lot of the Golf Channel people had us in the fourth seed, which was the last seed out of the four teams that were there. And so I think, we continued this streak of being the underdog until eventually we proved that we belong and that we are one of the top teams in the country, because the Ole Miss women's golf program didn't have a history of that.
Hmm.
Um, and so East Lake Cup was definitely another stepping stone in us kind of putting our foot down and saying, hey, we belong here and we are that good.
Nice. So now we're gonna get into the 2021, national championship at Greyhawk, which I'm very excited for. I am going to show you something, and let me know if you can see it.
Okay.
You can see this.
Oh, uh-huh.
Mhm. So these are Julia Johnson, your college teammate. She now works for the Golf Channel. Those are her college goals. As of August 1st, 2017. If you see down there, it says number 5 national champion. So Julia Johnson believed that it was possible, for the Ole Miss Lady Rebels to get a national championship, all the way back in August 1st, 2017. So she believed, talk about, believing, when you transferred, not only in the, the 2021 season, but talk about, how you believed that Ole Miss, was capable of, winning a national championship when you transferred from Clemson to Ole Miss.
Yeah, well, when you have two coaches that don't take no for an answer, I think that's a really, really big part of it. That's the only reason that I got as good, not the only, but that was the main reason that I got as good as I was, and that our team was as good as we were. Because you have two coaches that believe in you and that push you and, that tell you the hard things that need to be heard, maybe even when you don't want to hear them. And so I think that was definitely a big push for why I went to Ole Miss, because I knew, it wasn't going to be easy, but it was the right thing to do. And then also, when I came back for my fifth year, so I don't know if you've heard the story, but I originally did not want to come back for my fifth year.
Okay.
I said no, for a month straight. And Zach Bird, our assistant coach, called me every day for a month and said, have you changed your mind yet? And I said, nope. And finally, after a month, and obviously Corey Hinkes, our head coach, was calling me as well throughout that month. But at the end of the month, I think he had worn me down enough that I said, fine, okay, I'll come back for a fifth year. And when we were doing our media day, like a couple weeks after being back, I told my team, I was like, I'm gonna be really blunt with you. The only reason I came back, right? Like, I want a natty ring. Like, that's what I want. That's what I'm doing here. Like, I came back to try to win a national championship. And it's really cool that we were able to make that happen.
Nice. So did I get that correct? Did you graduate from Ole Miss in 2022?
2021. So I
2021.
finished, yeah, I finished my
Okay.
undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah, I finished my undergrad in 2020 and then finished my fifth year master's degree in 2021 when the national after the national championship.
So when you won the national championship in 2021, you were technically a graduate student?
Yes, I
Okay.
was.
Okay. So getting on to the national championship in 2021, I want to talk about, not only the finals, against Oklahoma State, but also your quarterfinals match against, Texas. So that is one that came right down to the wire. I'm sure it was very stressful. And maybe not for you, but for, your whole team. You had a very comfortable 4-3 victory um against your opponent from Texas. You were the fourth seed, they were the fifth seed. To get a comfortable 4-3 victory, but then as we know, you have to get at least, three victories for your team to move on. So then the real stress happened. Andrea Lignell's match came down to 22 holes. Your teammate Samilia Sonderby, sorry if I said that wrong, but her match came down to 21 holes. So, you know, yeah, just describe, how stressful the quarterfinals, match of the, 2021 national championship against Texas was, given that, Andrew Licknell's match came down to 22 holes and, Sonderbay's match came down to 21 holes.
Yeah, it was extremely stressful,
Mhm.
especially for me because I'm such a upbeat, energetic person. And so when I was playing my match, and I'd see my teammates, I'd, wave and kind of jump around and try to
Mhm.
continue that energy throughout the team. And I could kind of tell that something was off a little bit. And so I asked my coach when I saw him, I was like, hey, how are we doing? And since I was still playing, he lied to me, which is totally fine. He did it all the time when I would ask about the team and how we were doing or how I was doing or the leaderboard or anything like that. He'd be like, oh, yeah, we're doing fine. And then, so I was playing Sophie Guo, who I had actually played twice before in match play. And
Okay.
each time I had played her, I think I had won 5-4 and because I played her at the East Lake Cup and I had won, I think 5-4. And then the other time I had played her in the women's AM and I won 3-2. So I think my coaches kind of knew what they were doing putting me against her. Because she's a very steady type of person, and that energy I think just kind of wore her down. And so after I won, I went to my coach and I was like, hey, you said we're doing fine, how are we doing? And I finally got the leaderboard to load on my phone and we were down in all four matches. And I just remember thinking like, okay, guys, come on, like we got to find something. So I asked my coaches, I'm like, where am I needed? Where do you need me to be like the most peppy, energetic, like supportive teammate that I can be? And so he sent me to Chiara Tamberlini's match, which she, if she was playing well, she was just like me, peppy, energetic, but she could very easily get down on herself. And so I remember going out and watching her and like really rooting for her, trying to get that energy back, and she was able to flip that match. And so it was kind of like, okay, one check mark in the hypothetical, right? Like, okay, we're probably not going to be able to pull this off because everyone's down, but let's see what we can do. So got Kiara's match flipped. Julia had lost her match on 17. And then Smilla was able to take it. She won 16, 17, and then had a chance to win 18.
Wow.
And they both ended up bogeying. And so then that started the extra holes. And so Smilla went into extra holes and I think they both like parred, pretty uneventful pars the first two holes. And then they get to 18 and Smilla's laying up with an iron and she accidentally lays up in the water,
Okay.
which, especially at the national championship, to be at that level, that's kind of unheard of to like pull an iron, lay up and hit it too far into the water. And so I overhear Bentley, who I actually went to high school with. We did 1 year at Westlake together.
Okay.
Sweet girl, love her. She's awesome. But I hear her tell her teammate, she's like, it's over. We won. We got this. We're moving on. And then little does she know, Smilla takes a drop, hits a wedge to 5 feet, and makes the 5-footer to go to the next hole.
Wow.
Um, and so there were several times throughout that match that we're like, we're dead in the water. Like, it's over. There's no way. And then somehow, my teammates were able to find a way, which I think is a very telltale representation of Ole Miss.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good telltale story of Ole Miss. When you're down and everyone, counts you out, Ole Miss just, rises to the occasion. And, Similar story, layup in the water is a great, example of that. Like you said, the Golf Channel people didn't even, give you a chance to win, the 2021 national championship. And here you are, you won the national championship in 2021. So, my next question is, describe the emotions you felt when Andrea Lignell, hold her par putt on the 17th hole to win the national championship, and you and your friend, your teammates, just rushed the green and, hugged, Andrea and, your whole team, to be national champions. So just describe that emotions, when Andrea hold the putt to win the national championship for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think it was surreal.
Mhm.
I don't think it really kicked in until we actually got back to Oxford. Um, but when she made that putt, like she's clutch. Like and I think she's still at Ole Miss taking her fifth year.
Okay.
But that's the whole time she's been there, and she was a freshman or a sophomore at that point. I mean, she had just been clutch every time we needed her. She was able to make the putt, to get up and down, to hit the green and two putt, whatever we needed her to do, she would do. And I had just finished that hole, and I was planning on losing, or not even planning, but I thought I was going to lose 17 because I laid up with an iron off the tee, which it's a short drivable par four. And Maya Stark, the girl who I was playing, almost drove the green. And my layup ended up in the rough. And I was like, there's no way I can get this up and down. Maya's going to get this up and down. We're going to have the hole and we'll go on to 18. And then I ended up winning that hole and standing watching Dre come in. And as soon as she made that putt, we just all were in this huddle. And it was like, you could almost just tell that no one could believe what just happened. Like it, and even looking back at it now, there's like specific holes or specific memories that I remember, but it's almost like a blackout where you're in this zone so much that you don't even realize what is going on necessarily.
Mhm.
So it definitely took a while to like fully sink in. And I actually spent like 3 days in bed after we got back to Oxford just from like exhaustion. And I think emotional exhaustion, physical exhaustion, just everything that had built up throughout the semester.
Yeah, what people don't realize, it's exhausting, just playing, the stroke play, but then you have to, go through the match play and, you had some stressful, you had a quarterfinal match that was stressful, and then, you have to go through, the finals, which are also stressful. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the emotions, in that question, because, we saw, on the Golf Channel and all that, your teammate Julia Johnson was in tears, after, winning the national championship, just because it meant so much to her. And, even just, yesterday and today preparing for this interview, I watched her, interview with the Golf Channel after winning the national championship. And even I was, emotional in tears, just, hearing, her interview and, what it meant to her to win the national championship. So, you know, I wanted to talk on, what you talked to the Golf Channel about in your interview after winning the um national championship. You talked about leaving your legacy at Ole Miss. So your team was, the first women's national championship team at Ole Miss. So, what did it mean to you to be the first women's national championship team at Ole Miss, and what did it mean to, leave your legacy at Ole Miss? Because, for the rest of your life, you'll probably have, banners up there, and you can say that you're the 2021 national champions and the first women's national championship team at Ole Miss. So just, talk about leaving your legacy at Ole Miss and, what it meant to be the first women's national championship team at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think it was pretty crazy. And even the men's national championship side, now we have baseball, but before that,
Okay.
because baseball won in 2022. But before that, the only national championship in the whole school was football, and they were voted on. So
Okay.
we were technically the first national championship team that had won not based on votes.
Okay.
And so that, I think when we found that out too, that was, extremely exciting. And just leaving that legacy for me, it just really cemented that I did the right thing coming back. And whether we would have won or not, I would have known that I did the right thing coming back for a fifth year. But just really being able to be the first women's team, I mean, it's crazy. Like even thinking about it now, like I'm almost just kind of speechless, thinking about it, because it's something that like people still bring up at work. Like I'm behind the counter in the pro shop, and someone's like, wait, didn't you play college golf somewhere? I feel like I've seen you before. And then they kind of put two and two together, and it's like it's just really cool to be recognized in that light, to do something, that big and that historical for a program. And now, the Ole Miss women's golf team is killing it again. They won, I think, three or four, same thing, like three or four of their tournaments this last fall.
Okay. Wow.
So they're set up. Their spring season starts in 9 days now. And I think they've got a really good chance to try to run it back this year.
Nice. Yeah, so you just got into my next question. It sounds like you keep up with Ole Miss women's golf. So, do you still hang out or keep in contact with any of your teammates from Ole Miss?
I do, yeah. I had so Julia Johnson and Ellen Hume were both bridesmaids in and then I also had a former ex-teammate, so Macy Holiday. She played for Ole Miss for a little while. She was in my wedding as well. And so it was really cool to get them all up to Oregon and get to kind of show them my home base in Tokatee. And we actually had a wedding scramble for like my bachelorette party with a bunch of my friends, girls and guys. And just went out and played 9 holes, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I still keep in touch with them. I keep in touch with Dre. A lot of the younger ones I haven't had the chance to meet, but I do still follow their program, and I think I forever will. I still talk to Corey Hinkes quite a bit and Zach Bird quite a bit. I actually stayed with him and his wife. So he's the head coach at Purdue now. And so I got to stay with him and his wife in between Epson events last year. And both him and Corey and their families and kiddos came up for the wedding, which was awesome because I got to see them as well.
Nice. Well, again, congrats on your national championship. It's really incredible, and yeah, I'm very happy for both you and your teammates at Ole Miss. So yeah, again, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to touch on, you only played 1 year on the Epson Tour, but I wanted to touch on your short professional career. So, 2021 LPGA Q School. After graduating from Ole Miss, you got two stage two of LPGA, Q School, which, earned you Epson Tour status for 2022, but, you missed out on advancing past stage two by 1 stroke. So, what did you learn by missing out on advancing past stage two of LPGA Q School in 2021, by 1 stroke? Because, 1 stroke over, several rounds, that's a tough pill to swallow. But, what did you learn from, that experience at Q School?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the correct answer, but I learned that 1 stroke will haunt you for the rest of your life.
Okay.
I have two strokes in my entire golf career that will stay with me forever. One was at stage two at Q School, the final day on hole 17. I had like a 3.5, 4 foot par putt and I missed it. And then ended up parring 18 and missed stage 3 by 1. And then the other one is at the 2019 US Women's AM. And I was in the quarterfinals in match play and I hit a hybrid to like 3 feet. And I was one down and I had to make this 3 footer to get the match to all square with 2 holes to play and I missed it. And it's funny how shots like that will just be ingrained in your brain for the rest of your life. I think I had an incredible time playing on the Epson Tour, not golf wise, but experience wise. I
Mhm.
had a lot of fun and, overall I had a fairly solid year. But I think that's where I needed to be. And I think I'm where I need to be now. I believe that everything happens for a reason and it definitely stung at the time. But again, it got me to where I am now.
Yeah, so, it was unfortunate that you missed out on advancing to stage three by 1 stroke, but, you did earn your Epson Tour status for 2022. So, what was it like to play, 1 year in 2022 on the Epson Tour?
It was great. I enjoyed and I also kind of loathed the traveling. I definitely did the Epson tour on a budget, where I think there's a lot of girls that get to fly to every destination and stay in hotels and have a caddy for every event. I drove my car to 90% of the events. So
Okay.
I put over 30,000 miles on my car last year just driving around. So like I drove from Oregon to Phoenix, back to Oregon to Texas, to the Southeast stint, to the East Coast stint, to the Midwest stint, back to Oregon. So I drove through upwards of 40 states last year, which was pretty crazy. It was or sorry, 2 years ago. It was a really incredible experience. And I'm really glad I did it, and I actually finished high enough on the money list to where I would have had status last year if I wanted to play again, but I got offered this job at Tokatee and I had been traveling and golf had been the center of my life for so long, like playing, competitive golf. I wanted just to do something a little bit different.
Were there any friends, you made while you were on the Epson tour or any, of your competitors who you were close with, maybe you would room with, while you were on the Epson tour?
Yeah, so I had a couple different girls that I would stay with. Like I said, Kelly Whaley was one I mentioned. The one that I probably spent the most time with was actually my roommate at Clemson,
Okay.
Anna Paula Valdez. So her and I were the same year at Clemson, and we roomed together all 3 years I was there. And so we kind of traveled together on the Epson tour, which is a lot of fun. Her and I still keep in touch. And then there's another girl who's still on the Epson tour, Maddie Caldwell Young. We stayed together a handful of times. But yeah, it's fun. You really get to know the girls, and because it is so difficult out there, you most of the time you find yourself pulling for, your group of people. And so it definitely helped having that group of people. I think it was a lot harder at the beginning of the season when I didn't really know many people. And so I was kind of out there alone. But then by the end of it, you really form and develop these relationships. And even now it's fun just like watching like Polly Mack. She played for the University of Alabama. She's on the LPGA tour now, and she got her LPGA tour card through Q School this last year. And it's really fun to like follow her because we played together in college, we played together on the Epson tour, and just being able to watch and see her success now is awesome.
Nice. So yeah, you only played 1 year on the Epson tour and now you're a head golf professional at Tokatee Golf Club in Oregon. What prompted you to transition from playing professional golf to now being a head golf professional?
Yeah, so the old head pro that was here before me was retiring and they were looking for a new head professional, and they had a couple people that they were talking to. And I actually had gotten to know the owner of Tokatee pretty well. He helped me out through Q School, kind of sponsored me through Tokatee. And so I have my MBA, but I didn't have any PGA qualifications. And so I didn't know the likelihood of me actually getting hired. But I wanted to put my name in the hat just because I love Tokatee, and this is where I want to live and this is where I wanted to be. And I knew that this job was not going to come around for another long while because the head professional before me was here 28 years and the one before him was here 24. And so I knew that if I wanted to have a chance at being the head professional here at Tokatee, that I needed to strike while the iron was hot. And so I put my name in the hat, and the owner, Mark Justina, was asking me like, well, what happens, if, because I actually was getting ready to go play in the Portland Classic, my second LPGA event.
Okay.
Um, and this was like the weekend before, and he's like, well, what happens if you go out and win the Portland Classic? And like, and then you get status, like, are you gonna go play, or are you gonna, come back and be at Tokatee? And I'm like, well, Mark, if that happens to happen, let's address that when that happens. And it did not. I unfortunately missed the cut. Um, but I think too, just being able to have fun with golf again was a big influencer for me. Not that I didn't have fun on the Epson tour, but there's so much pressure that comes with being a professional golfer, especially when your paycheck is coming from it. And you have all of these sponsors that want you to do well and are not necessarily putting pressure on you to do well, but expect results. And so it's a very specific type of lifestyle. And I don't think it was one that was for me. And so when I had the opportunity to be home with my husband and my two dogs and have a stable paycheck and be where I love, and I'm actually going through the PGA program. I'm just completed level 1. I'm in level 2 now, and I get to play in all of the Pacific Northwest majors. So I get to play in the Oregon Open, I get to play in the Washington Open. So I still get to compete, but now it's just for fun with no added pressure.
Yeah, didn't I see didn't you win like the Oregon Open or something like that?
I did. I was the first female ever to win the Oregon Open
Nice.
in 2021. So it was actually 2 weeks after the national championship. And so that that's the other thing how I was saying, where a lot of people will bring up the national championship. A lot of people will also bring up of, hey, weren't you? I saw something with you in the Oregon Open. What was it?
And you said you played in an LPGA tournament
I did. I got to play in two. So I played in the
too.
Marathon Classic, which was the one that Julia Johnson gave me the exemption into.
Okay.
Um, and then I got to play in the Portland Classic, which I Monday qualified into, which I will probably continue to play in that Monday qualifier to try to play in that LPGA event every year.
Oh yeah, didn't after the 2021 national championship, didn't Julia defer the exemption to you for the Marathon Classic?
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
That was way too generous and kind of
Yeah.
her. And as I'm not sure if you've seen the clip, but as my reaction showed on TV, that meant a lot to me at the time, and it was a great way for me to be able to boost my professional career.
Nice. So now you're the head golf professional at Tokatee Golf Club in Oregon. So just tell me about Tokatee Golf Club and what it's like to be a head golf professional.
Yeah, the professional side, like the PGA professional side of things, is definitely a lot different than like a playing professional. Like I said, sometimes you work crazy hours, and you're also in the customer service industry, so sometimes you get some some crazy people. But Tokatee has honestly become my home. And I've played golf in almost all 48 lower 48 states, and I can honestly say that Tokatee is in my top five. We were ranked in the top 20 public courses in the US. And it's in the middle of nowhere. So if you're in Oregon, we're about halfway from Eugene and halfway from Bend. So up in this, there's one highway that goes through the McKenzie Valley, and about an hour outside of outside of Eugene on the left-hand side of the highway is this random little golf club that has a sign that says everyone welcome. And that really is our motto. Everyone is welcome to come play. We're extremely affordable. During the summer, our course conditions are some of the best I've ever been on. Our superintendent absolutely kills it. And I love working for the Justina family. It's actually really cool, the legacy that they've built. So Mark's grandfather built Tokatee in 1966. And then the responsibility was passed down to his son Larry Justina, and then once he passed, the responsibility was passed down to Mark Justina. So it's a very family oriented course, and a very family oriented business as well. So
Nice. Final question. What are some career goals you have for yourself? And do you see yourself remaining a golf pro going forward, or you just taking your career as it goes? You know,
yeah,
you don't have any career goals or, where you see yourself in 5 years from now.
yeah, in 5 years, I definitely like still see myself at Tokatee.
Okay.
I would be lying if I said I hadn't thought about getting into coaching. My assistant coach, now head coach at Purdue, Zach, has recruited me quite heavily to try to get into the coaching industry. And then I was actually recruited for the assistant women's golf coach position at Oregon this last year and turned it down because I wanted to stay at Tokatee.
Okay.
Uh, but I think there might be a possibility, but I also don't know if I could ever see myself leaving Tokatee because I love it here so much. But we'll just kind of see what time will tell. But on the PGA side of things, my goal is to be the first female ever to play in the PGA championship, which I don't know if that's feasible, but there's a way. So if you're a male head professional or a male class A PGA, you can play in your section championship. So we would play in the Pacific Northwest section championship. And then if you finish in the top 20 in your section, you get to go to the PNC, which is the PGA National Championship. So different than the PGA Championship.
Okay.
Um, and if you finish top 10 in the PNC championship, then you get an exemption into the PGA championship. So like one of my PGA buddies, Colin Inglis, has played in the PGA championship the last couple years. What's Michael, why am I blanking on his last name? That made the all the noise last year, playing in the PGA championship. Is
Yeah,
it
Michael Block.
Block, yes. Michael Block got into the PGA that way, playing
Okay.
in his section championship and then getting that exemption. But unfortunately, as a female, you have to play from the same tees as the men if you want a chance at the PGA championship. So I would have to play from the tips in order to qualify, or I can play from my tees, which is still, 6,200 yards. I can play from my tees and qualify for the PNC championship. But if I finish top 10, I don't get an exemption into the PGA.
Yeah.
So,
Is distance a problem for you? Like, are you a shorter hitter or are you a long hitter?
I would say I'm a longer hitter out of most females, but playing from the tips alongside men just does not seem fair to me. Because
Okay.
the reason that I get a tee box advantage is because, so like if they're hitting driver and then I'm hitting driver, we're both going to have a 7-iron into the green. So that evens out the approach shot distance. But whereas if I'm playing from the same tees as them, I'm probably going to have a hybrid or a wood into the green and they're going to be hitting a 7-iron,
Okay.
which isn't necessarily fair. So it's something where for now I'm going to stick it my tees and see, once I get my class A, I'm going to try to qualify for the PNC championship and then take it from there.